Hi, this is Leslie with pRETTyBrooke Presents, and today pRETTyBrooke presents information on coronavirus as it relates to the disability community. I am pleased to speak with my former ACLU colleague, Claudia Center. She's an expert on disability rights, and she's currently the legal director at the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund.
I wanted to first start with you talking a little bit about your organization.
Sure. Well, I am the legal director of Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, and it's a new job for me. I've only been there less than 2 months.
Oh,
and
I didn't realize
it's
that.
quite amazing time to be there because Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund has expertise in the particular areas that are most hit by COVID-19. So education of students with disabilities, the access to home and community-based services for people with disabilities who live in the community with supports, and medical bioethics. Now that sounds like such a fancy thing, bioethics, and when would that ever apply in the real world? Well, here we are, it's applying in the real world.
That's right.
With all these medical rationing policies. So we've been right in the thick of it.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we wanted to talk about today. Because of, particularly with all the rising number of coronavirus cases in the U.S., it's been something that's I've seen on a lot of the disability sites. Healthcare rationing. What is? Can you just tell me a little bit about what it is? Is it something that might actually happen? What's going on with that?
Well, the concept of healthcare rationing is what are the policies and procedures that you follow if there's a situation of scarce resources? So like scarce number of beds, scarce number of personnel, of ventilators, of medications. And one issue right there is that part of including everybody in disaster and emergency planning is that you actually do the planning. So you plan ahead and you make sure that you have the stockpiles you need, you make sure you have the emergency planning you need. And to some extent, we've had some stockpiles, but some of the stockpiles were all out of date and the equipment wasn't working anymore and the inventories hadn't been maintained. And so that's really a problem. I mean, if you're gonna have emergency planning and you're gonna keep everybody safe, including people with disabilities, you really have to have that planning, and you can't just sort of forget about it when we're not in a time of crisis. So some of these shortages we really shouldn't be having. So that's kind of part one right there.
Right. So what could one do for themselves? How could somebody be a good advocate for themselves in a situation like this?
Well, one thing that we're really advising people is to try to stay safe and well in your own home. So a lot of it is just trying to keep people from getting exposed to the virus and to try and keep people supported in their homes. So people with significant disabilities are kind of facing a lot of hurdles and a lot of barriers. So some people, for example, they might use personal care attendants who come in to help with bathing or getting up or going to bed. And that makes it hard because if you need someone to come in from outside, if they're not part of your household, you can't fully self-isolate. So, how do you make sure your attendant has personal protective equipment and, trying to keep everybody safe? So that's like one barrier right there.
That was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, actually, because I told you, shared a little bit about my daughter with you. She has Rett syndrome, and I am working from home, and so is my husband. And so we needed to continue the caregivers coming into our home. So one of the things that we did was we just for ourselves started thinking, well, how can we best take care for ourselves and for the people who come into our home So we will take temperatures before they enter our home. We do that every single time. They know that, so even if we if we forget when they come in, they say, "Oh, you haven't taken my temperature," and we've limited the number of people who come into our home, and they immediately come in and wash their hands, and they do all of the things that the CDC recommends, so that we can be as safe as we can. And we limit our other interactions. We only go to the grocery store once a week if we can help it, and those kinds of things. So it's a challenge, because it is difficult to do all of those things, completely isolate, but that's why I was certainly nodding, because those are the kinds of things that I've come into contact with myself.
Yeah, definitely. And then for some people, they're also anxious. Some people with disabilities, they're anxious that the personal care attendants or the other supporters who come in, well, what if they can't come because of COVID? Maybe they could be sick, but even beyond that, what if they have young children and the schools have closed? And so now all of a sudden your personal care attendant or your other supporter can't come anymore because they're at home with their kids, or maybe they have a relative with COVID. So there's just a lot there that's an issue.
Right, exactly. So when you were earlier talking about the healthcare rationing and all of that, I mean, what are some of the legal implications? Is that something that's even legal to do?
Well, we think that I think that most of the policies I've seen are not legal. I think most of them violate the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. And then there's part of the Affordable Care Act called Section 1557, which is kind of the same thing as the ADA and the Rehab Act. It's the concept of non-discrimination in healthcare. So I think, and Dredif, where I work, we think that these policies violate all these laws and are illegal.
And are you finding this? Is this something that is being discussed in the disability community, or have you seen any of this happening? Or where do you think it is right now, currently, with respect to this kind of healthcare rationing idea?
Well, so I'm talking to you from California, and California, in the scheme of things, has more resources than some states, and the virus is a problem here, but it's a little bit more managed than some other states.
Right.
So if that keeps going in California, we won't see healthcare rationing, and that's probably true for a lot of states. A lot of states have sort of have good leadership. They've intervened. They've tried to slow flatten the curve, slow the virus spread.
Right.
And they've tried to expand the capacity of hospital beds and ventilators and all that. So that's all good news, that if we can avoid rationing. But what I think is almost as important than actual rationing, like tangible, literal rationing, is what these policies communicate to people with disabilities. So even if we have no rationing at all, the fact that all of these doctors and hospitals and quote unquote bioethicists think it's okay to publish these policies that exclude people with disabilities, that just communicates something that's going to stay in the air long after this virus is gone. So that's the other reason it's important.
That's right. And it's scary for people like myself who have kids who are in part of this community. I mean, it made me start to think, well, yeah, what happens if she has to go to the hospital and there are not enough ventilators or whatever the case may be. And it's something scary to think about. I understand that it's not easy decisions for the lawmakers, but it's certainly scary for people who have to deal with it and deal with it in terms of their own children.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really scary. And and a lot of the policies, some of them are really obvious, like how how they discriminate. Like they'll say, well, if there needs to be an allocation, then, you know, people with these conditions, like if you have a traumatic brain injury, or you have dementia, or you have intellectual disability, then that's like your lower priority. So that's kind of obvious, like you're using the disability right in the policy. But some of it is, well, I still think it's obvious, but it's a little bit less obvious. They'll say, well, you consider life expectancy, or, you know, something called life years, like how many life years. So then does that mean you are gonna deprioritize somebody who has, you know, cystic fibrosis, or, you know, Down syndrome, or spinal muscular atrophy, or things that, you know, you can have a very successful life, but you're, you know, if you look at statistics, your life expectancy is shorter. So is that what you're saying? Are you saying that you're gonna, you know, deprioritize all the people who have disabilities where, you know, they might have a shorter life expectancy?
Exactly.
At least statistically, yeah.
So what's the answer? What's how does one combat this kind of a problem with these rules that are either springing up or have existed?
Well, I think a lot of it is what we're all doing, like what we're doing right now, having this conversation by our Zoom call here. It's talking about it, it's speaking out, it's, you know, standing up to the medical establishment and saying we don't agree with these policies, saying, you know, of course, you know, if somebody's not going to survive, if you think someone's not going to survive treatment, okay, that's one thing. You can, you know, say, all right, for this person, we don't even think they're going to survive, you know, the next couple days. That's one thing. But if you're looking down the road, you know, into the far future, that's really not what you should be doing. That starts to get into discrimination about what you think about how long the person's going to live, and, you know, anything about quality of life. That's a big red flag for, you know, the disability community. Yeah.
Exactly. So would you recommend that folks talk to their representatives about these issues? Is this something that a way that people could be active and advocate for themselves?
Yes, I think so. I think that people can talk to their elected representatives. People can reach out to their protection and advocacy agency in their state and let them know they're concerned about that. I think almost all of the protection and advocacy agencies, usually they're called disability rights and then the name of the state, almost all of them are engaged in this issue of medical rationing and trying to, you know, create a way to communicate the concerns of the disability rights community. There are also some grassroots coalitions that are springing up to try and, you know, tell the medical establishment that we disagree with these. That's happening in Florida right now. There's a grassroots network that's trying to fight against a policy that's really about life years, you know, this life expectancy thing.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you talking to me about this. And
this is great. It's been really fun.
And thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's one of those issues that's really important to me, and I think the folks who are watching this will appreciate it too.
Okay, well, great. Any other questions?
No, I think you covered a lot. Is there anything else that you think we're leaving out?
No, I think the only other thing is that just because it's an emergency, just because it's a COVID-19 emergency, doesn't mean that the ADA doesn't apply anymore. It still applies. And so if, like, for example, you and your daughter go to the hospital and they want to, you know, take your daughter and you're supposed to accompany her, you know, you still get to accompany her, even if it's an emergency.
Oh, I am so glad.
Mask again, but...
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I have heard a lot of people on disability websites and forums talk about that, how that is one of the big fears. Would I be able to accompany my child?
And that is
Yeah.
something that a lot of folks have really been talking about and have been afraid of happening. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
something that people are
And if
really
some,
afraid of.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so would be called, oh, that would be called like a reasonable modification or a reasonable accommodation under the ADA would be that, you get to accompany your daughter, assuming your daughter needs you based on disability to be there. And of course, with minors and parents are almost always needed for minors, with or without a disability. And, if someone needs sign language interpreter or, whatever it is, now, sign language, we have remote sign language, just like we're having a remote call here. So you can get
Right.
sign language even remotely. So all of those things still apply, even though it's an emergency. We still need to make sure people's rights are respected.
Wow. Well, thank you
That's
so much. I appreciate you talking to me.
Anytime. This has been fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Take care. So that was my interview with Claudia Center. Like I said, she is with the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund. She is the legal director there. And I hope you enjoyed all of her wealth of knowledge on the subject. She is a disability rights advocate, and she's been doing this for a number of years. And she provided a lot of information. If you want to talk more about this or know more information about this topic or suggest other topics for me, please send a comment, like this, share it as wide as you want. My goal, again, with pRETTyBrooke is to provide information for the disability community. Talk to you next time.